The era of big government is over.
Yes, Bill Clinton lying way back when. The era of big government is over. But he did work with great Republican Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, to balance the budget. I think it's the last time that happened, isn't it? And now, Led Zeppelin. Where's the Led Zeppelin of today? Who is the Led Zeppelin of today? Seems like everywhere we go, restaurants and taverns and sports bars and every place else, the music that's playing is 50 years old everywhere you go. Certainly 40 years old everywhere you go. And it's not like, I'm going to college places and the music is 40 to 50 years old. And it's amazing there. We see it all the time. My best girl and I, we pay attention to this. And, hey, when's that song from? And you see kids that are 10 years old with their parents. They know the lyrics to these 40 and 50-year-old songs. It's kind of an amazing thing. I think the music was pretty good back then. And now, Kendrick Lamar got the Pulitzer Prize. For what? Well, I couldn't possibly read the lyrics aloud here. So pay no attention to that. But we opened there with Bill Clinton saying the era of big government is over, which is kind of fun. The left is going bat guano crazy, as they so often do, because President Trump is saying, hey, if you work for the federal government, you got to come into work, start showing up work. And guess what? We're offering buyouts. And you'll be paid for less than a year. If you're thinking about leaving the government anyway, this would be a good time to do it because we'll pay you for a long, long time. They won't love you a long, long time, but they pay you for a long, long time. And you'll be very excited to know that this will be the end of your time with the federal government. Pay no attention to any of that. Remarkable things going on in the world today. President Trump driving the train on almost all of it, quite honestly. Boy, is he a busy guy. He does not rest. He does not sleep. And he has big stuff going on all over the place. But the media very upset. Trump's buyout offer accepted by about 77,000 federal workers, White House says. And for some reason, they're upset about this. News Nation, approximately 77,000 federal government employees have accepted a deferred resignation offer, spearheaded by the Trump administration as it looks to reduce the federal workforce, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said. And she is doing a great job. Leavitt on Thursday confirmed the final buyout tally. And after the offer deadline was reached at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, the tally, which amounts to less than 4% of the federal workforce, is short of the 5% to 10% goal laid out by the White House. Now, did you see the story about the one lady government employee who said she wants to leave, but she hates Trump so much that she's going to stay so she can sabotage him from inside the government? You see this woman? She should be, there should be a pre-dawn FBI raid with a news camera crew across the street. Now, a spokesperson for the Office of Personnel Management said that they're pleased that a court rejected the effort to strike down the program. And the Democrats go around and they find an Obama appointee judge figuring that they'll side with the Democrats, and they usually do. But actually a Clinton judge, federal judge nominated by Bill Clinton, who said the era of big government is over long ago, but he didn't really mean it. Remarkable stuff. And so 77,000 people accepted the offer of a buyout. Now, here's something that CNN and the Washington Post are not going to tell you. And that is that Bill Clinton, whose audio we just played you right there, had an interesting go of it when he was president And let me go to the United Press International, UPI. And from March 30th of 1994, Clinton signs federal buyout bill into law. United Press International, UPI, Dateline, Washington, March 30th, 1994. President Clinton signed a federal buyout bill on Wednesday designed to reduce the government payroll by about $273,000 by the end of fiscal year 1999. That's a 5-year plan. You know how these commies are. In a statement released at the White House while the president vacationed in San Diego, California, Clinton reiterated his commitment to streamline the government and asserted, after all the rhetoric about cutting the size and cost of government, our administration has done the hard work and made the tough choices. And UPI excited, oh, that makes Bill Clinton look good, use that. I believe the economy will be stronger and the lives of middle-class people will be better as we drive down the deficit with legislation like this, he said. And with Newt Gingrich in control of the House of Representatives, they did have a balanced budget for a minute. The legislation will enable the administration to help pair the federal civilian non-postal workforce. You don't want to threaten the jobs of postal workers, especially in the 90s. You know, that could lead to negative outcomes. Postal workforce by almost 12% over the next 5 years. Their goal was to cut the federal government workforce by 12% over 5 years. Trump administration just got 4% reduction, and they're going bat guano crazy, bringing the size of the bureaucracy below 2 million for the first time since 1966 and its lowest level since 1950. The bill, which allows federal agencies to offer voluntary separation incentives, just like Trump, or buyouts of up to $25,000 to employees who resign or retire as part of the plan submitted by Vice President Al Gore to cut government excess. They wanted to cut government excess. Isn't that amazing? Now they want more government excess, and they're out of the closet as champions of government excess. For them, DOGE is the Department of Government Excess. They would like to add to the size of the government. So that was going on then. But that's not all, because that was happening in real time. Now if you go to the fake fact checkers that are fraudulent, like Snopes and PolitiFact, that are Democrat Party front groups, they've got a fact check because they're very angry about President Trump. And people pointed out, you know, Clinton offered buyouts and cut the federal government by 12%, right? And here comes Snopes, left-wing hacks, frauds. They're not fact checkers at all. They're Democrats, and they lie all the time. They deceive all the time. And Snopes on February 8th of 2025, 6 days ago, they printed Clinton initiative cut over 377 federal jobs in the 1990s. Then listen to this. It's not comparable to Trump's effort. Yeah, it was much bigger, I guess. Isn't that amazing? Social media posts claim Donald Trump and Elon Musk had simply learned from the master in their attempts to cut government jobs. So during his time in office, this is the claim that they're fact-checking at the phony Snopes, U.S. President Bill Clinton oversaw the termination of 377,000 federal employees. And they give it a green check mark and say, true. Oh, but wait, it needs context. Here's the thing. If you look into it, as I do, according to testimony from Elaine Carmack, the director of Clinton's initiative, it eliminated 426,200 federal roles between January of 1993 and September of 2000. So Bill Clinton and his administration cut 426,200 jobs. And right now they're furious, I say, that President Trump is cutting any jobs at all. And how many jobs did they cut? Not nearly as many as Bill Clinton. Isn't that amazing? 77,000 jobs. And how many under Bill Clinton? 426,200 jobs, 12% of the federal workforce. President Trump, 4% of the federal workforce. And the Democrats are having a mental breakdown over what President Trump is doing. PolitiFake, as it's known, another fake fact-checker Democrat Party front group. Yes, Bill Clinton offered mass federal employee buyouts. Here's why Trump's program is different. And it's just they do hit jobs, Democrat Party hit jobs all over the place. Now, we've got this montage. Everybody needs a montage. Montage of going back to Bill Clinton and Al Gore and the Democrats during the Clinton administration, a montage put together by a Republican member of Congress on how the Democrats had a buyout and reduced the federal government workforce by 12%, hundreds of thousands of jobs. President Trump so far, tens of thousands of jobs, 77,000 jobs. And they're furious now, but back then, Bill Clinton was great.
This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules,
Al Gore.
Change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less.
And release your chakra.
And where it says the president should, the president will.
Among the 800 recommendations, eliminating 12% of the federal workforce, merging some government agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Oh, no.
Closing hundreds of government offices outside Washington.
From the day I took office, one of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in rooting out wasteful spending.
Obama.
We thought that it was entirely appropriate for our governments and our agencies to try to root out waste, large and small,
liar,
in a systematic way. It means cutting some programs that I think are worthy, but we may not be able to afford right now. A lot of the action is in Congress and legislative, but in the meantime, we don't need to wait for Congress in order to do something about
we don't need no stinking Congress.
We
Congress
haven't seen
is
as
not
much
for
action
us.
out of Congress as we'd like, and that's why we launched on our own initiative the campaign to cut waste. And we're going to keep on finding every possible way that we can do that, even if Congress is not acting.
Even if Congress is not acting. So it goes through Obama, and that was apparently put together by Republican Congressman Eric Burlinson, who is from the great state of Missouri, where I lived for about 6 months, a not very big period of time. Isn't that amazing? All right, let's grab a quick phone call, Michael. Let's go to Kennedy, calling from Manassas, Virginia. Kennedy, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, my friend, good to talk to you. I just wanted to kind of disagree with you. I mean, well, I don't think I'm going to disagree with you, but everybody kind of sounds like they're making a big deal about this and there's like some kind of victory. But I can guarantee that if we actually follow this and pay attention in 4 years, the next president is going to just hire these people back. It's not going to be this victory that, oh, we're cutting government, because as you just were playing the stories from Clinton and even Obama, the federal government never shrank. I mean, we're still complaining about the size of government and the expenditures and, oh, now Trump is cutting jobs. It's like, yeah, but then they just get hired back, or they're going to sue. The union is already dropping lawsuits left and right. So they're going to sue to get their jobs back. They're going to cry about, oh, it wasn't fair and all this other stuff. So, I mean, just cautiously, folks, this isn't a victory for me. As a former government employee and a union guy too, proud member of the union, but our fight at the union was at the local level. So, but this is just, I don't think this is a victory that everybody's taking it as. It seems premature to me. I don't think we're going to gain anything by this. I think the government's still going to grow. I'm hopefully optimistic that what Trump and Elon Musk are doing, but at the same point in time, I think people are being too celebratory about this. I think it's just a ruse, and these people are either going to come back in 4 years and they're probably going to get back pay. The way that Trump is asking the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to come back to the military who were kicked out because of the COVID jab.
Yeah.
I think they're going to do the same thing with the government employees. They're going to say, oh, hey, sorry, we kicked you out. We shouldn't have. And here's your job back with back pay. So just cautiously optimistic, but I don't think this is a win that everybody's making it out to be.
Well, your skepticism is appropriate and earned and deserved, and maybe even cynicism when it comes to our government and its the ever expanding nature. And you say in 4 years, if a Democrat if a Democrat wins in 4 years.
People got to vote. I mean, people sit at home and they complain, oh, I don't like Trump, I don't like this guy, whatever, or I'm going to vote like Mickey Mouse. Okay, this is what you get when you vote or you don't vote. You vote like for not the right guy, or you don't vote because you're sticking it to the man. This is what you get. So
that is a fact. Yeah, and the illegal aliens and the gangs and the drug trafficking and the Democrat Party has become poisonous, has become toxic. Just ask Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Just ask Tulsi Gabbard. Just ask Elon Musk, who was a Democrat not very long ago. No, I understand your skepticism, and it's well-placed skepticism, Kennedy. There's no doubt about it. You got to constantly watch these people. Never know what they'll do next. And since you mentioned the COVID vaccine, I've got a Democrat story involving the COVID vaccine and a 12-year-old girl that needs a heart transplant. The Democrats, they want to kill her. That's coming right up. Thank you, Kennedy. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Now, yesterday, the Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, were very angry about a news story that the Trump administration had entered into contracts to buy $400 million worth of electric armored vehicles. Electric armored vehicles. And they all went bat guano crazy. Oh, they're funneling money to his billionaire buddy, Elon Musk, because he makes Teslas and they're electric vehicles. And since a Democrat self-immolated in a Tesla vehicle at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas recently, he killed himself, had nail bombs in there, wanted to murder a lot of people, but the Tesla was so sturdy that the nail bombs just went straight up and didn't kill anybody but the Democrat driving it who rented the Tesla vehicle to blow it up, right? But yesterday, big story, and they were very angry that Trump is giving $400 million to buy Teslas from his buddy Musk, armored vehicles for the State Department. Well, it turns out that national fascist panhandler radio, the Tesla contract started in the Biden administration to explore interest from private companies to produce armored electric vehicles, the State Department spokesman said on Thursday. Tesla was the only company to express interest in the State Department's request at the time. National Panhandler Radio buried that in their story. Tesla, the Trump administration, says it has no plans to fulfill $400 million armored Tesla contract. But it turns out it was the Biden administration that entered into this contract. The Trump people just found out about it. They've killed the contract, and the Democrats are still angry. Yeah, the Washington Post front page, a-sectional lead story, upper right-hand corner. Trump amps up federal firings. Most newer hires on chopping block. 200,000 probationary workers may be affected. And, they don't talk about Bill Clinton offering buyouts to and getting hundreds of thousands of federal employees to leave because that would be journalism, and they don't do that. They don't do that. Yeah, I love this, the fact that the electric vehicle, armored vehicles, was a contract, $400 million contract, that the Biden administration created, and now the Trump administration has killed the contract because, our crooked, rotten media, you know how they are. They're pretty awful. The National Panhandler Radio and the Washington Post and the whole gang. The New York Times with the headline, State Department suspends plan to buy armored vehicles from Elon Musk's Tesla. And they consider that a victory now. Now, the reality is it was a Biden-era contract, which they probably didn't know anything about, discovered it. Killed it, canned it, okay. The Washington Post, U.S. plan to award $400 million vehicle contract removes references to Musk's Tesla. Yeah, don't worry about it. The Associated Press, State Department halts plan to buy $400 million worth of armored vehicles from Musk. They're mental, these people. Democrats call out Trump's actions on Tesla. Musk. The Democrats are calling out as a Joe Biden contract. Everything is a lie with these people. The lie is so gigantic. Man, oh man. The Democrats, they got away with it because, Now, there are a couple of crazy stories. There are crazy stories all over the place because there are Democrats everywhere. A teenager in Indiana has been arrested. They say that he had an obsession with the Parkland, Florida school shooter and the school shooting. And this teenager in Indiana has been arrested because CNN says Indiana teen accused of plotting Valentine's Day school shooting was inspired by the Parkland massacre. And, David Hogg, who was a student at the Parkland school when that mass shooting took place there, he is now, the DNC vice chair. He's number 2 in the Democrat Party because he was at a school shooting. Wah, wah, wah. And that might actually bring us to, it was J.D. Vance in Munich talking about all kinds of fun things. The Vice President of the United States, he's at the Munich Security Conference. I was talking about that a bit yesterday. And I went once when I was assigned to the Pentagon to that Munich Security Conference, known then as the Verkunda Conference. And the highlight of that conference, it was boring, and Munich was, boring, and we got that Socialist Workers' Party passed there. But I did get to fly over on Ronald Reagan's Air Force One, the 707 that is now at the Ronald Reagan Library in California. I did get to fly over there and back aboard Air Force 27,000. That's the tail number. That was the best part of that conference for me. But J.D. Vance was there, and he was making fun of the Europeans and NATO a bit. And since we're talking about David Hogg and the school shooting, J.D. Vance talked about how these people are they've been led around by the nose by Greta von Thunberg, the environmental, she's a minor prophet, a prophet of doom, doomsday prophet for the Democrat Party, as is David Hogg. They love to abuse children in myriad ways. And one is to turn them into political prophets and trot them out. But J.D. Vance, not having any of it, and he was there at the Munich Security Conference, and he was with the NATO Secretary General, which was kind of fun. And he was sitting there looking all European, the NATO Secretary General. And J.D. Vance was looking like an American and a combat vet and a regular guy. Oh, I still haven't gotten to, but we'll get to it after this. J.D. Vance in Munich, and with the Secretary General of NATO. A lot of fun because he's a no-nonsense guy. He really is, J.D. Vance. And the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte with J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance speaks clearly and freely.
We'll talk about NATO, in particular the president's desire to see NATO spend a little bit more resources on defense. And I know that's something Secretary General Rutte agrees with me on. We're going to talk, of course, about the Ukraine-Russia conflict and how to bring it to a negotiated settlement. And I'm sure we'll talk about some other areas of cooperation, too. I mean, NATO is a very important military alliance. We want to make sure that NATO is actually built for the future.
Yeah, J.D. Vance, and bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. Well, why hasn't NATO been talking about that? Why hasn't the NATO Secretary General Rutte been talking about that? Why hasn't the European Union been talking about that? Why hasn't the United Nations been talking about? Where are all these useless international organizations from? The United Nations, I've been saying for years and years, should be condos, the building in New York, and they should have a table in Geneva, Switzerland somewhere there where they go and have lunch once a year, because that's all they do. Who saved more lives last year, Pfizer or the United Nations? Democrats hate big pharma. If they put the word big before anything, they hate it, except for big government. They love big government. But big pharma, big oil, big this, big that. They're against anything that's, big business, except big government. But there's J.D. Vance in in Munich, rather, and NATO's important, but, the future. And how about ending that war in Ukraine? You guys been talking about that for the last several years? I think not. J.D. Vance in Munich.
And trust me, I say this with all humor. If American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
That is great. Greta Thunberg, her scolding about the climate and the weather. She was a teenager. I think she may no longer be a teenager. Now they're done with her, I think. They used her up and spit her out.
How dare you?
She, was one of their playthings. And they used her as a child prophet. They love abusing children and putting them out there to be their political spokesmodels.
This is all wrong.
Oh, isn't she cute? She was never cute, never adorable, never charming.
How dare you?
Everybody knows it, Greta von Thunberg. And J.D. Vance, and he makes fun of Greta von Thunberg there and how they're all being led around by the nose and had been for years by Greta von Thunberg on the climate, like they couldn't be adults and think for themselves, which apparently most of them cannot. And J.D. Vance then took a shot at the Davos gang.
One of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics, contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders.
Ah, yes, and I got to tell you, the NATO Secretary General, he was looking a little awkward at moments with his legs crossed and his arms crossed on top of his legs and looking all European. And when's the last time we heard from him? Isn't there a war in Europe? Shouldn't we all know who this guy is? NATO, we just fund it, and then, when war breaks out, we have to come fix it while the Europeans throw bonbons in the back of their throats and slurp not too fussy Chardonnay. Now, since J.D. Vance was the focal point of that story, there's another story related to J.D. Vance. And here's the headline from The Independent out of the United Kingdom, not in the Washington Post, which is not a newspaper at all. J.D. Vance's relative, 12, refused heart transplant over vaccine status. The left, the Democrats, they don't care what you do as long as it's mandatory, right? Got to be mandatory. So the Independent out of the UK, it turns out that Adelaine Deal's mother, says that she decided her daughter wouldn't need a COVID-19 vaccine or a flu vaccine because the Holy Spirit put it on our hearts. That's what she said. So that's them mocking her and her faith, her religious faith. A relative of Vice President J.D. Vance says an Ohio hospital has refused to put her 12-year-old daughter on its heart transplant waiting list over her vaccine status. Janine Deal, the mom of 12-year-old girl from Indiana who is related to J.D. Vance's half-siblings through marriage, not a close biological relationship, adopted Adelaine from China as a 4-year-old, knowing the little girl had 2 heart conditions. This nice American family went to China, find a 4-year-old girl, has 2 heart conditions. Oh, we're going to adopt her and bring her back to the United States. And she needs, it turns out, because of 2 heart conditions, a heart transplant. And now it turns out that liberals running the hospital in Ohio say, not only we're not giving her a heart transplant, we're not even going to put her on the list for a heart transplant because she has not submitted to the iron fist of the Democrat Party and gotten a vaccination for COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 vaccines are suspected of causing all kinds of heart problems in all kinds of people, and this 12-year-old girl has 2 severe heart conditions already. They adopted her as a 4-year-old in China, knowing they were going to have to deal with this. But the amazing stuff. She's got something called Epstein's anomaly, and Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. And, she would one day require a heart transplant. They knew that when they adopted the 4-year-old girl. Now she's 12. She needs the heart transplant. The girl has been receiving treatment from the Cincinnati Children's Hospital, a leader in pediatric organ transplant, for almost a decade now. But on January 17th, Deal and Adeline's doctor confirmed with the family that she was in heart failure. They found out on January 17th, so now she needs a heart transplant. And they've got Democrats at the hospital, and they're saying, well, we're not even going to put you on the list for a heart transplant because you didn't agree to submit to get the COVID-19 vaccine, which may cause further heart problems. Now, the mother, what sound of it, 23? 21, I apologize. Number 21, let's go there. Because mom was on the television this morning in the 5 a.m. hour, and Janine Deal on her 12-year-old who's being denied access even to the list for a heart transplant. Why? Because she didn't get the COVID vaccine, which may cause additional heart complications. Here is Mother Janine Deal.
We're very hopeful that Cincinnati Children's will change their minds, and we do have some thoughts on different hospitals that will accept her not being vaccinated.
Wow, I got to tell you. So the hospital, and the only reason is that she didn't get the COVID vaccine. The Democrats firing Romp and Stomp and Life Take and Mamma Jammas from SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force because they wouldn't get the vaccine because they're the most physically fit people on the planet Earth. And President Trump had to right that wrong that the Democrats inflicted, and the wrongs just keep on coming because of Democrats. And it's always Democrats, isn't it? Yes, it is. Our Democrat Party. All right, let's take a phone call. Let's go to Jim, calling from the great state of Illinois. Jimmy, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello?
Jim. Hi, Jim. You're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Chris. This is Jim from Sycamore, Illinois. How you doing?
Very well, Jim. Thank you very much.
Good, Chris. You just had a previous caller who called in about cutting back the government payroll. And what Trump and Elon are doing is they're running the country like a business, which it hasn't been run like a business. We're $36 trillion in debt. How do you get around this?
Right.
It's got to stop. So that's the first thing, is that you have to cut payroll. Any business would, the first thing they would do is cut payroll, and then they would look at departments and where they would cut. And it's just unbelievable to think that people don't think this way, that, if you have to have a business, whether you have a small business or a big business, you have to think that way. So that's one thing. And the other thing that blows my mind is Lee Zeldin finding $20 billion in gold bars, if it's all gold bars, that were thrown into the ocean.
Yeah, that was the metaphor. That was the metaphor that was used actually by a Biden person who said that they had taken. They were throwing. It's like throwing gold bars off the Titanic. And Lee Zeldin at EPA said they found a bank account that the Democrats had rushed as Inauguration Day was coming, and they moved $20 billion into an account that they could use as they wished later on as a slush fund. 20 billion taxpayer dollars, and they moved it into a bank account so they could use it and send it to their political allies in the crazy left-wing environmental movement, right? And yeah, there was it was actually a Biden administration official who said this is like throwing gold bars off the Titanic. And now,
okay, well, I didn't get that part of it, but my point is that, if these people, whether it's Brandon Johnson in Chicago using federal money for illegal aliens or taking federal money, these are federal offenses. These people should be charged by the federal government. This is federal money. This isn't local money. This is federal money. They should be coming in with warrants. You misappropriated government funds.
That's right.
Okay. And they should be auditing it. When you give people $75 million for something, there should be one of these 87,000 IRS agents bringing the check and saying, okay, where is all this going?
You are 100% right, of course, and hopefully President Trump will be busy doing that, and we see the Justice Department already moving to do that. And that was not happening during the Biden years because they just see this money as theirs. The corruption is so natural. It's so ordinary. It's so expected. Yeah, EPA head Lee Zeldin reveals no real oversight of shocking $20 billion that Biden administration funneled through Citibank. And he says it's the tip of the iceberg. And they spread it around to their environmental pals, and they buy yachts and houses on lakes. And we've got a news media that doesn't even raise an eyebrow about this sort of thing. You know, the role of the Fourth Estate is to hold feet to the fire, government officials. And when the government aren't being good stewards of our money, the news media is supposed to call them on it. The most corrupt institution in America is the American news media. I just told you about police in Indiana arresting a teenager who was plotting a school massacre today on Valentine's Day. Indiana teenager accused of plotting a school shooting on Valentine's Day inspired by the 2018 Parkland, Florida high school massacre where 17 people were murdered. The 18-year-old teenager, would-be school shooter, is named Trinity Shockley. And CNN won't tell you this, but Trinity Shockley is a transgender 18-year-old Indiana teenager who likes to be called Jamie, and the news media are calling her him, and it, of course, brings to mind the Nashville massacre of 2023, where a 20-year-old transgender named Aiden Hale massacred 6 people at the Covenant School. Another transgender would-be massacre. Now, I see the clock ticking. I've done it to myself again. On CBS News, comparing Trump to Hitler again.
The Ukraine war will be the main topic at the opening of the 61st Munich Security Conference, held in a city synonymous with Europe's appeasement of Hitler at a conference in 1938 in the run-up to World War II.
Hey.
History some critics are raising to describe President Trump's dealings with Russian President Putin over Ukraine.
Yeah, except Hitler wasn't bringing peace to Europe, if I remember correctly, and that's what... Other than that, the analogy is perfect. You guys need mental help.